Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's always an honour to rise in this House and debate important issues to all Canadians, and I believe our responsibility and our commitment in the fight against ISIL is one of those extremely important issues facing Canadians and those of us in Parliament. I'd also like to say, Mr. Speaker, that I would be splitting my time with the honourable member from Perth, Wellington. I would first of all like to begin by thanking the brave men and women who wear our nation's uniform in the Canadian Armed Forces and their professionalism and their dedication to service. I believe I'm speaking on behalf of all members in this House when I say we are tremendously proud of what they've achieved, and because of their world-renowned reputation, we are honoured to call ourselves Canadians. Our men and women of the Royal Canadian Air Force are some of the best pilots, the best air crew, and the best technicians anywhere in the world. We have an incredible history, from the early days of World War I and Billy Bishop to the accomplishments we've made through World War II, Korea, Afghanistan, and even today. They are made, like I said, they've made a reputation for being some of the best fighting men and women anywhere in the world. And the brave men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces are always willing to do the heavy lifting, which includes degrading and defeating ISIS, a terrorist group committing mass atrocities, inspiring terrorist attacks around the world, and who have declared war not only on the Middle East, but Canada and our allies. Our contribution to the fight against ISIS has been absolutely incredible. Our men and women in uniform have protected our soldiers, helped stave off advance of terrorism, and they have played an integral role in the coalition. I would just like to say at this time, thank you very much for everything they have done. Now, Mr. Speaker, before I get into the nuts and bolts of my speech and my debate, the one thing that I really feel is important to mention here is really the disingenuous debate that we're having on this topic at all, and the fact that the Prime Minister has announced that he has already halted the CF-18 mission before this debate has even started. The Prime Minister, I would like to say, has disrespected this House. He has disrespected every member of Parliament. And most important, he has disrespected every Canadian who wanted a fulsome, open debate on an issue of this magnitude. They want a debate within the House of Commons, and they are not getting a real debate because they know the decision has already been made. Now, I would ask the government, the Prime Minister, if he doesn't think that Canadians care about due process, I would encourage him to speak to the Alberta NDP government. They made a similar mistake in December when they put forward a farm bill and put all these consultations and debates, meetings, after third reading was already scheduled. What happened? Every farmer and rancher in Alberta became extremely upset and made a huge difference and rallied for their friends and their neighbours. And I think they should take a real lesson on the Canadians will not stand by and let these disingenuous decisions be made without having a fulsome and legitimate debate within the House of Commons. Of course, I find it somewhat ironic that this government is making such a decision because last year when we made the votes in this House to proceed to put our military in Syria and Iraq, I heard from the other side of the floor at that time lots of calls and disconsternation that we were not having enough debate on taking military action in the fight against ISIS. But we had a real debate and we had a real vote on taking that action. Each and every member of this House had the opportunity to speak before a decision was made, something this government has not given us the benefit of the doubt to do, and I think they should be ashamed of taking that action. Now, Mr. Speaker, I had an opportunity earlier this week to speak to several military families in my riding, and I really wanted to ask them what they felt about what was going on in Syria and Iraq and how they felt about this motion being put forward by the Liberal government. And, you know, their message was really crystal clear, and I can't stress this enough. Their message was, if ever there was a time for them to get in the fight, this is it. This is what they have trained for, to fight against something, the atrocity that is ISIS. If there was ever a time where they felt that it was the moment to put their life on the line, this was it. They understand that ISIL is a threat not only to the Middle East, but it's a threat to Canadians home and abroad. And they want to do everything they possibly can to protect Canadians. And to do that, they need to be part of the fight. They need to be in the action. That is what they've trained for, that is what they want to do, and they have not spoken to one single member of the military who does not believe that we should be there, we should be in this fight against ISIL. Now, yesterday it became really quite clear what the Liberal government's position on this is. I would like to paraphrase a member of the Liberal Party who said, "Our military contribution in the fight against ISIL is just a token gesture." A token gesture. I cannot believe the disrespect that this member would show to our men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to fight one of the most disgusting things that we've ever seen in a generation. They call that a token gesture. I find that completely disrespectful to the men and women of our military. And our job is supposed to support our allies with whatever contributions we can do. For example, Belgium has 2 fighter jets as part of the coalition, just 2. They're not pulling out their jets, nor do I believe that our allies are calling Belgium's contribution a token effort. If the Liberals truly believe that our commitment and our contributions to the coalition is a token effort, why doesn't this motion they've put forward include an increase in our air support? Why does it not have 12 CF-18s if they believe this is really a token effort, instead of pulling the 6 that we have out? This member also questioned if ISIL was even a terrorist group at all. I find it quite astonishing that this government would be this out of touch with what ISIL really what it really represents. And I find it incredible that they'd be this out of touch understanding the magnitude of our CF-18s and the impact that they have had on the fight against ISIS. Just for an example, our CF-18s have conducted more than 250 bombing missions. And since, as of February, 249 missions against ISIL's fighting positions, 83 against ISIS equipment and vehicles, 24 against ISIS improvised explosive factories and storage facilities. Despite this success, we are taking our dogs out of the fight. And not only we are taking a major asset out of the fight, we are putting our men and women on the ground at further risk. Now, the Liberals will argue that pulling our CF-18s will not mean further risk to our men and women on the ground. This is simply not the case. I, for one, do not want to rely on someone else to protect our men and women in uniform. I think that's our job. Our Canadian Air Forces and our Royal Canadian Armed Forces and the Royal Canadian Air Force, they train together. They communicate with one another. They know they can depend on one another. Without our CF-18s there's a significant safety risk, and they're reducing the capabilities of our armed forces. First, 6 CF-18s have the same impact on a fight as 400 to 600 boots on the ground. What is safer, 600 boots on the ground or 6 in the air? My argument would be we would be much safer and less risk if we kept our CF-18s in the fight. Second, our CF-18s are absolutely the most technologically advanced among our allies in the coalition. They absolutely have capabilities that some of our allies do not. This means that they can take on tasks other air forces in the coalition will not be able to do. Third, we are losing our influence in the planning. When we take a major asset out of the fight, we are losing a spot at the big kids' table. We are going to be, on the bench. And I don't think that's where Canadians expect us to be in a fight of this magnitude, to be sitting on the bench. Also, our military may be handicapped. There are difference in rules and engagement between our allies, differences in communication, and definitely differences in priority. But I think one of the things that I'm really concerned about with this decision is the communication with our CF-18s and our ground forces, plus the fact we will not be a priority for allied air forces. For example, we saw this in Afghanistan when our Air Force, we did not have our CF-18s there. Many missions that we put forward were delayed because we were waiting for Ally air assets. God forbid that something would happen with our men and women, they'd be in danger, that they didn't have air support. Knowing that our CF-18s are there, they'll have that reassurance that they're always the #1 priority for our CF-18s. Our Royal Canadian Air Force will be there to back them up. They've trained together, they communicate with one another, and there's a huge morale booster for our men and women on the ground knowing our CF-18s are there. So really, in conclusion, what I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, is our men and women in military, they want our CF-18s there. Our allies want our CF-18s there. And most importantly, the vast majority of Canadians want our CF-18s there. of all the broken promises that this Liberal government's had in the last 100 days, why is this the one they're so adamant to keep when the rest of Canadians do not agree with it? I implore the Prime Minister and I implore the members of this House to vote against this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions?